Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Apologies for the crash. I had to actually do a restart for the PC. Inshallah, everyone now can see and hear me well. If so, if someone can just write something. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Perfect. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم هب لنا رأفته ورحمته وعونه ودعاءه وخيره ما ننال به سعة من رحمتك وفوزا عندك يا كريم. So meanwhile, as we wait for the rest of the respected brothers and sisters in faith to hop in, let's just remind ourselves of the significance of tonight, Laylatul Jumu'ah. Subhanallah, time flies, doesn't it? I reminded myself and you, my dear brothers and sisters, of the hadith that says, alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah to all of you, that states that rewards and punishments are multiplied on the night of Thursdays and also on the day of Fridays for the unique position that this night and day have in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let's all remind ourselves too that the deceased and those past relatives of ours, they anticipate the charity. In fact, there is a hadith that the deceased sometimes they're given the permission to visit their relatives and they talk to them in a way that we cannot hear because we're alive and they're in another world. But they see us, they hear us, and they ask us, as the hadith says, they say that even this loaf of bread that you throw to the dogs, we are in need of this, implicating that they need rewards to be sent to them, thawab and zakat to be sent to them. One of the things that I highly encourage, and I always say this when I have a majlis, I say the same way that you teach your small ones, your children, to have their own personal piggy banks, and you sometimes give them the coins to have their own money. Likewise, we should teach them to have um, even a small piggy bank for the poor, for those in need. We need to teach them. If not daily, perhaps on Thursday nights, let us teach them to be caring and not only think about their own selves, but also about those who are in need, the fuqara, and that obviously the reward of this can go to the deceased and those who anticipate. على كل حال, inshallah, the majority have attended, so we will officially commence with the program. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Welcome all again in this spiritual journey of the past worlds and the world of the souls, as we named it, Alam al-Arwah, or as named in the traditions in some of the hadiths as the Alam al-Ashbah or Alam al-Adilla, the world of the shadows. So we were going through some of the traditions and some of the theories and perhaps some of the misconceptions therein. And so this is the third session that we are delving into the world of the souls. Let us start the presentation, if I can get it very quickly. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salaam alaikum once again. I do apologize for the inconvenience here. So now we're officially starting the class. I'll share the screen for the presentation, and this is PowerPoint. Here we are. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Okay. So once again, we're still in the world of the souls. We want to discover this world of within, the world of the souls. And we want to discover this through the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, because there is absolutely no better than them informed and be able and are able to inform us and teach us who we actually are. So one of the um, points that we touched upon, perhaps very shortly, that there is more than one opinion and theory as far as the connection between the soul and the body are concerned. So there are those who think that what we see is basically a dream that we're living in. And so it's a deception. It's not, there's no reality behind it. And uh, the biggest example for the backers of this theory are the Sufis. And so they say that we have to extract our souls to be able to see reality. What we see is nothing but a daydream, so to speak. And then there is the other side of the spectrum, the other extreme perspective or mindset that says all there is the body, is the physical realm, and there is no such thing as the soul. And now that we have established this through the reminding of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that there is two sides to human beings, there is the soul, there is the body, um, we have to try to understand the nature of this connection and of this combination and the mixture, if you like, of the body and the soul. So there is this beautiful hadith that I've quoted here, and you can see this is from the sources Ilal al-Shara'i' by the eminent scholar Shaykh al-Saduq Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayh. And bear in mind, I'll say this interesting point. Uh, there are three famous scholars who were the perhaps the first ones who initiated the the process of compiling the hadiths of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and all three are named Muhammad. Um, that's why in the Hawza it's known the Muhammadun, the three Muhammads. You've got Shaykh al-Saduq, Shaykh al-Tusi, and also Shaykh al-Kulaini. These three Muhammads, Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Kulaini, Muhammad ibn Ali al-Saduq, Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Tusi. And they have the four famous books, Al-Kutub al-Arba'a, Kafi, Istibsar, Tahdib, and Man La Yahdaruhu al-Faqih. And so one of these three Muhammads has various books, perhaps more than 70 books, and they're all important, at least the ones who have reached us and we have access to them. One of which is this book. It's called Ilal al-Shara'i', or the reason behind the decrees and the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a fascinating, a very beautiful book that gives us um, a window of understanding towards why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have dictated or has made all these different decrees. Anyway, so this is a beautiful hadith that Imam talks about the leader, the spiritual leader, or the divine Imam, the divine leader appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his position, how it has to be in society. So the Imam says that everyone, and I'll just give you the context of the hadith, then I'll mention what we want to pinpoint here. So the Imam says that everyone has to obey the divine leader. Everyone has to accept his commandments and his orders. Why? Because this is the only way humanity can reach utopian life. This is the only way they can reach prosperity, both physical and metaphysical and spiritual prosperity. We have to listen to that person who is the guide from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we are guided. Otherwise, it's just a trial and error, and this is going to be the case up until the end of time. And so whatever we stitch or try to fix, there are always flaws and shortcomings in our life without the guidance of the divine, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his representative. So this is the Imam, this is the idea that the Imam is trying to represent here. But then he brings an example, which is what we want to draw your attention towards. The Imam says, "I'lam ya fulan." He says, "No, oh such and such." He's speaking to one of his companions, he says أن منزلة القلب من الجسد بمنزلة um, okay, so yeah, I just wanted to open this panel so that if there's any problem, I see it. Yeah, so the Imam says that the position of an Imam or إن منزلة القلب من الجسد بمنزلة الإمام من الناس. Yeah, that status that an Imam has within the society is the same as the position that a heart has. And we said this before, a heart is a resemblance. It has more than one meaning, but sometimes uh, it's a reference to the soul, right? So the Imam says that the heart, the Imam's position in society within the people is that of the heart in the what? In the jasad, in the body, right? So the Imam says, I'll just open this laser pointer so that you can see it better for those who understand Arabic. إن منزلة القلب من الجسد بمنزلة الإمام من الناس الواجب الطاعة عليهم. So the heart is a resemblance of the Imam's position. How? ألا ترى, do you not see how clear it is أن جميع جوارح الجسد شرط للقلب وتراجمة له مؤدية عنه. Do you not see that all the organs in the body, of the body, they are agents for who? For the heart, right? شرط للقلب وتراجمة له, and they are the resemblance of the heart, right? Beautiful, very, very fascinating how the Imam conveys this knowledge to us. And ومؤدية عنه, they do, the organs, right? Let's just take the hands as an example. They do what the heart wants, right? Then the Imam continues on elaborating. He says, Al-Udhunan, the ears, Wal-Aynan, the eyes, Wal-Anf, the nose, Wal-Fam, the mouth, Wal, uh, Wal-Yadan, Wal-Rijlan, Wal-Farj, the two hands, the feet, and the private part. فإن القلب إذا هم بالنظر. The Imam says, once the heart or the soul, once it wants and intends and makes the decision to see, what happens? The man or the person opens their eyes. فتح الرجل عينيه وإذا هم بالاستماع. Once a person intends to hear something, what happens? He moves his ears, right? Maybe this is a reference of the idea that, and the fact that once you want to hear, you can only then hear. If you don't want to hear, you basically don't hear what you don't want to hear. وَفَتَحَ مَسَامِعَهُ فَسَمَعَ. You open your ears for the sounds. وَإِذَا هَمَّ الْقَلْبُ بِالشَّمِّ. If you want to smell something, استنشق بأنفه. You make that sniff, you smell. فأدى تلك الرائحة إلى القلب. Again, so beautiful. That smell and that scent arrives to the heart, to the soul. You can then say that this smells such and such. وإذا هم بالنطق تكلم باللسان. Once that person decides to speak and to convey a message, then that tongue and that mouth is opened. وَإِذَا هَمَّ بِالْبَطْشِ. If you want to move your hand, if you want to pull something, if you want to push something, if you want to hit something, right? عَمِلَتَ الْيَدَانِ. So the hands start moving. Now that I'm making this decision to move my hands, it is the soul that is giving the order the same way, right? That, let's just say a man in charge orders people to do such and such. So the Imam says, shuratun, they are the agents of the soul. Beautiful. وإذا هم بالبطش عملت اليدان وإذا هم بالحركة سعت الرجلان. And if you intend to move, what's going to happen then? The feet will move, right? How did those feet move? How did you go front or back? It is because of that will that took place within the heart. So we're talking about this combination, which is the soul and the body. The body, um, it has no other option but to obey the soul, right? And so the soul is the one in charge. As long as the soul is in the body, so there's the connection in place. Now, you'd say that why is it sometimes that I make the intention, but I simply cannot move? I make the intention, but I cannot speak, right? Well, because the body is, as we have said before, it's it's imprisoned in the body. Because the soul is imprisoned in the body, then it cannot help but utilize those healthy organs for its interests. But then, if something happens to the body, then the soul cannot operate well. And this is the case that we want to make a point here. So the Imam says, that's another hadith. I apologize, I haven't written the translation for these, but I'm translating it as I am going through. The hadith says, ليس للحواس دلالة على الأشياء ولا فيها معرفة إلا بالقلب. So this is an extraction from a very lengthy debate that took place between the sixth Imam and the so-called um, uh, the doctor of his time, the Indian doctor. So you can search this hadith if you find it translated, be it, it's a very beautiful hadith that in fact the Imam himself describes what happened with the doctor in that debate and in the dialogue to one of his companions by the name of Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar. The Imam says that I said this and he said that and I replied such and such and so on and so forth. So that man was obviously, he was denying the existence of the metaphysical. He was denying the existence of the soul. And so the Imam made a very beautiful point here, elaborately, that if this is the case, then how? 1, 2, 3. He refutes his misconception. This is one extraction and one portion of the hadith. The Imam says, ليس للحواس دلالة على الأشياء. The senses, without the heart or without the soul, they do not distinguish, they do not understand anything. Ahsantum, Sister Maryam, apparently that's the hadith. Okay, it's named Hadith al-Ihlilaja. So there was this mixture of medicine that the Imam was proving God's existence through that which the person, that doctor, had made. It's a beautiful hadith, a very lengthy one. So the Imam says, if you remain without the soul, those senses really can't help much. ولا فيها معرفة إلا بالقلب. They do not distinguish, they do not realize and understand and be aware of what's what and what's happening without the heart. فإنه دليلها ومعرفها الأشياء. For example, you see a mirage, right? The senses, if it was only the senses, and this is a lengthy debate that we have with the so-called materialists, right? A mirage seen through the eyes, if there is no heart and there is no soul that distinguishes right from wrong, then we have to say that there is water out there, right? Or let's, for example, this famous example that if you have a warm water and you have a cold water, you put each of your two hands in each of those two bowls, and then or glasses of water or whatever, you'd have a different feeling, right? And then obviously because one is hot and one is cold, but then if you put two hands in one cool water, not too hot, not too cold, again you will be having different feelings. So the hand that was put into in the hot water now would feel that this water is cold, but the other hand would feel the same water as hot because the water that it previously was put in was cold. So if we remain with the senses, with no heart, with no soul, um, then the resolution and the conclusion would be very different. The Imam says that it's the heart that distinguishes, the heart that understands. فَإِنَّهُ دَلِيلُهَا. The heart and the soul is the guide for the senses. وَمُعَرِّفُهَا. That informs them. الأشياء التي تدعي أن القلب لا يعرفها إلا بها. So the next slide. Okay, so as we follow through the slides, we're reaching, inshallah, what is the focal point in in this session, inshallah. One of the biggest mistakes ever happening by mankind, or those who fail to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perhaps the majority being in the Western world, is the fact that they deny the existence of the soul. Why am I saying it's one of the biggest mistakes? First of all, obviously we have to believe in facts. We have to believe in realities, even if they don't have practical effects to them, right? If someone suggests that, let's say, there is no sun, they're denying a truth. That's important on its own. But then there are some realities and truths and facts that they affect their denial and acceptance that affects our lives, right? They are significant, they are important to us. One of which is the soul. So there are so many phenomena, let's call them now, that we go through, we perceive in life. We don't know how to name them. If we deny the existence of the soul, what's going to happen is that we will attribute these phenomena to something wrongfully. For example, the mind. So let's go through this a little bit more. So one of the repercussions of denying the soul is attributing the characteristics and the effects of the soul to the body. Now, we obviously, now that you became reminded of this fact, that whatever we do with our bodies is an effect of the soul towards this body, right? That it has, and the impact that it has, and the authority that it has over this body. So you say that, no, it's the body that's making these decisions. That's very wrong. But that's not it. So for example, if someone becomes shy, what happens to their face? It changes color, it becomes red, right? If someone becomes fearful, what happens to their face? It goes yellow. Why? It's because of the soul's impact over the body. But again, this is not it. We will get to it. We'll get to what's more important than this. So not knowing the diseases, there's a spelling mistake in this, of the soul and how to cure them. So now if I have an ailment, I obviously go to the to the medical practitioner, and I go to the expert in this regard, and he or she gives me the medicine, right? We have ailments that are attributed to the soul the same way that we have diseases that are attributed to the body. Psychology, it is absolutely helpless in this regard. So someone is feeling, let's say, a spiritual shortcoming, a metaphysical problem that they face. What do? The chances are, right, if they want to seek help, they go to the psychological expert here. Listen to this beautiful hadith narrated by Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, salamullahi alayh. This book, this hadith is mentioned in the book of Tawheed. Tawheed, again, one of the beautiful books of Shaykh as-Saduq, one of the three Muhammads, one of the Muhammadun al-Thalath. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, listen to this hadith, mind-boggling. The Imams are those doctors of the hearts, those doctors of the souls. He says, إِنَّ لِلْجِسْمِ سِتَّةَ أَحْوَالٍ. So now he speaks about the obvious. The Imam says that this body has 6 main conditions. 1, as-sihha, becoming healthy. 2, al-marad, the opposite of becoming healthy, becoming sick and ill. 3, the third condition of the body, al-maut, death, right? You'd say that this person is alive because he walks, he talks, whatever. And then you say that he is dead. Why? Because the body no longer moves and operates. So that's the third condition. The fourth condition is the opposite of death, which is being alive. 5, an-nawm, being asleep. 6 is being awake. We're all familiar with this. We can relate to it. وَكَذَلِكَ الرُّوحِ. But then, likewise, there are 6 different conditions that we have towards the body. We have also towards the soul. How? How so? The Imam says, وَكَذَلِكَ الرُّوحِ. So the soul also has a state of being healthy, has the state of being ill and sick, has the state of being sleepy or having a sleep. 4th, having the condition and state of being awake. We're not talking about the body here. It's the soul that we're speaking about. And also having the state and the condition of being alive, and also finally of being dead. How? So we said the body being dead is that it's no longer operating, correct? No longer functional. The body being having the state of, let's say, being healthy, as we can see, no need to go to the doctor and take medicine and whatnot. Being sick, the opposite. But how so the soul can be sick? And how can it be healthy? How can it be dead or alive or becoming, going to sleep or waking up? The Imam here explains. He says, فَحَيَاتُهَا, its life, being alive, is how? Having knowledge. Having knowledge. We sometimes trace this to the brain and having the data and the information that I've refuted in previous sessions. But that, in fact, is the life of the soul. You want to remain alive, you need knowledge, right? And knowledge is something that we need to be aware of. So it's not just back there having the knowledge. No, you have to be you have to have the remembrance towards. That's how you can remain alive. So that's 1. 2, obviously the opposite of that is lacking knowledge. وَمَوْتُهَا جَهْلُهَا. وَمَوْتُهَا جَهْلُهَا. A brother asks about Ramadan. So that, inshallah, we'll wait for the moon sighting. وَمَوْتُهَا جَهْلُهَا. Let's focus on this hadith. A person who doesn't know what he or she needs to know, they are dead. They are similar to a dead person. In fact, the Quran speaks about this in more than one verse. That, oh Rasulullah, you're speaking to the dead. Why? Because they simply do not want to know. They do not want to be aware. You're speaking to the dead. وَمَوْتُهَا جَهْلُهَا. وَمَرَضُهَا, its illness lies in what? Shakkuha. So this is something that we want to focus a little bit on tonight. وَمَرَضُهَا شَكُّهَا. The illness of the soul lies in its doubt. In its doubt. Right? So I'll continue the hadith, then we'll go back to shak and doubt. وَصَحَّتُهَا. How does it become healthy? The soul? يَقِينُهَا. The exact opposite of doubt. What is it? Certainty. Certainty. If you have certainty, you, my friend, is a healthy person. But if you've got questioning, you've got doubt, then that soul is ill. Okay, so if it's ill, what should I do? Let's come to the experts. See, psychology doesn't help me here, right? Doctors, physical doctors, medical practitioners, they cannot help me here. Panadol, acetaminophen, these medicines, they don't help me here because they help the illness of the body. We're talking about the soul here. We need ones who can help us cure these types of illnesses. So then the Imam says, صحتها يقينها. Its health lies in its certainty. The health of what? The soul. وَنَوْمُهَا غَفْلَتُهَا. And how about being asleep? The Imam says, when it's inadvertent, right? When it is unaware, that's when it becomes asleep, when it goes into sleep. وَيَقْلَتُهَا. How does it come back, become awake once again? The Imam says, in حِفْظُهَا, in remembrance. Beautiful. Okay, so what are the diseases of the heart? What are the spiritual illnesses? It's all these sins. It's the hardening of the heart, greed, obsession with this world, suspicion, ego, aggression, stinginess, pride, craving for money. My friends, all of this is the illness of the soul. All these sins are the illness of the soul. Now, who do we go to in order to remedy and to cure all this illness? We need to come back to the Holy Quran. What does the Quran say about itself? فيه وشفاء لما في الصدور. Allahu Akbar. وشفاء لما في الصدور. Quran, one of its beautiful qualities is that it cures our souls. Now, how is that so? Once we reflect over the Quran, we then get to cure our spiritual illnesses. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to this beautiful hadith. Sorry for the creepy photo here. So this man, his name or his title is Abu Basir. Okay. Abu Basir is the title of this companion of the Imam who happened to be blind. So he was incapable of being able to see. One day he says that I went along with the fifth Imam, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, to the grand mosque of Mecca, Masjid al-Haram. Obviously he can hear all the voices. So he said, I told the Imam, يا ابن رسول الله ما أكثر الحجيج وأعظم الضجيج. يا ابن رسول الله, what's this? These voices that I'm hearing, how much people have attended the grand mosque and they're doing the tawaf and ibadah and worshipping and whatnot. The Imam, obviously, these close companions of his, sometimes he wants to give them one extra boost of knowledge and certainty. The Imam said, Bel, now let me correct you here. ما أكثر الضجيج وأقل الحجيج. So you say that there's so much noise out there? You're correct, you are right. But أقل الحجيج, no. let me fix you here. You said أكثر الحجيج, so much are the ones who are visiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing Hajj. No, no, no. The fact is how little, not how much, are those who have visited Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أتحب أن تعلم? Do you want to affirm to my statement? Do you want to attest to what I just told you? وتراه عيانا? Do you want to see what I am talking about? فمسح عينيه ودعا على عينيه ودعا بدعوات. The Imam, he puts his hand over my eyes and he wipes over my eyes. All of a sudden, he was blind, but then I started seeing what's taking place in the Grand Mosque. The Imam said, انظر يا أبا بصير. Just look what you see in front of you and what you call the Hajij. He says, فَنَظَرْتُ. I started seeing, but then he says something that we don't see. He said, فَنَظَرْتُ فَإِذَا أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ. I started, but I started seeing, but what I saw is that the majority of those people, قِرَدَةٌ وَخَنَازِيرٌ. Now what I'm seeing is not people. What I see is monkeys and pigs. Al-'ayadhu billah. قِرَدَةٌ وَخَنَازِيرٌ. But also I see those mu'mineen. Right? I see the mu'mineen. How do they look? He said, وَالْمُؤْمِن بَيْنَهُمْ كَالْكَوْكَبْ اللَّامِعْ فِي الظَّلْمَاءِ. But a mu'min is not just a typical human being. Now that I am seeing the barzakhi realm, if you like, or what it's sometimes referred to, right? I am seeing the mu'min is so glorious here. I am seeing the face of the mu'mineen so radiant. He is like a beautiful moon, glorifying كالكوكب اللامع. In what? He is glorifying in the darkness. فقال أبو بصير صدقت يا مولاي. Yes, oh my master, you are so truthful. What you were saying and I didn't understand and comprehend. في ذلك الحجيج ما أقل الحجيج وأكثر الضجيج. Yes, indeed, how little are the ones who are sincere and truthful and truly visiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Grand Mosque, but then their voices and this noise is so much. ثم دعا, the Imam then made a dua. He said, I became blind again. Abu Basir said that the Imam told me that, look, we're not stingy here. We don't want to spare anything from you, but Allah wants to give you the reward that awaits you in the hereafter. Allah did not oppress you in this, but He wanted good for you. وَإِنَّمَا خَارَ لَكْ وَخَشِينَا فِتْنَةَ النَّاسِ بِنَا. And we are fearful that people will start thinking of us what we do not deserve, as in thinking that we are God. No, no. We want people to believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are nothing but His servants and His slaves. وَيَجْعَلُونَ أَرْبَابًا. They assume that we are gods, and we are not such. وَنَحْنُ عَبِيد. We remain His servants and slaves. لا نستكبر عن عبادته ولا نسأل من طاعته ونحن له مسلمون. So we submit to Allah. We are not arrogant. And so on and so forth. The idea here, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, is that we sometimes tend to put so much focus on this exterior body of ours. The fact of the matter is that the same way that we have an image, the physical image that we see, right, and touch and sense, we have another image. And that relates to the what? To the soul. This is what is referred to in Arabic as the khalq and the khulq, right? I put this here so that you can see. So you've got the khalq and then you've got the khulq. The khalq is a reference to this image that we see. There is another thing very close to this in how we utter it and we say it. It's called khulq. Khulq is the image of the soul. So two images The image of the body, we call it khalq. Then we have the image of the soul, which we call khulq. Now, the image of the body is something that we really can't do much about. But that's not what it's what has the importance, but the khulq that we actually have the ability to change. Once a person makes a right decision, then his khulq, the image of the soul, changes accordingly. If God forbid someone makes the wrong decision and intends to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that image of the soul changes, right? And this is what Abu Basir actually saw. Now, how? Weren't they Muslims? Well, at the time of the Imam, um, and there were different timings and conditions and situations that the Imams went through, but there was a time that the Imams knew truth and they knew that the Caliph of that time does not deserve to be called Amir al-Mu'mineen and to be called the Imam and the Khalifa of Rasulullah, but the Imam because of the so many miracles that they saw. And so abandoning to accept this truth obviously is a decision that we make. If a person knows for sure that, for example, God exists, and then they willingly decide not to accept this truth, this is what happens here. So the khulq changes, the image changes. Now, obviously, we are put into this veil in this life that we cannot see, but there are people, those um, um, those what we call the awliya, sometimes they get to see the same way that Abu Basir was able to see. Obviously, the Imams, they see they see reality how it is. They're not deceived by the exterior side. Now, we're not ordered to be able to have this vision of Abu Basir the same way that Abu Basir was only given a very limited time to be able to see. He came back because he needs to remain in this life. He needs to be like everyone else, and we need to treat everyone according to what we have been taught, right? For example, a mu'min, if that person is a mu'min, you have to treat him like a mu'min. If he has committed a sin, right, in his bedroom, you are not to be aware of that. So you have to treat him as a mu'min. And anyway, so there is the khalq and there is the khulq, the same way that we take care of that khulq. In fact, more importantly, we have to take care of that khalq because this is what matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what matters to the uh, to God's vicegerent. And here we conclude with this. Maybe, inshallah, we'll be speaking more about the soul and how we need to take those characteristics into account and how they affect our lives. And being dismissive towards them is a great flaw and shortcoming as far as trying to understand our own selves is concerned. So I conclude with this, inshallah. We'll look into some of the questions by the brothers and sisters. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Some are suggesting that there are um, some famous ulama that are known that they used to have this vision. We really can't um, uh, don't have a means to know even, and put this in your mind, brothers and sisters, that even if there are people who see, rest assured that they won't tell you. They won't tell anyone because they're going to be opening a Pandora's box over themselves, right? The Imam said it. He said that no one should know about this because people start claiming things, saying things, and so this is the case with the awliya, with the close servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Um, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay. Can you please upload the lessons to YouTube? Yes, I apologize. Inshallah, I'll do this. Um, Assalamu alaikum. Anonymous says, it was a huge awakening and answered a lot of questions. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. May Allah um, give us all the tawfiq to apply and to become aware of what they want us to be aware of, and dismiss what is um, irrelevant to us. Um, uh, Rafat says, Assalamu alaikum, please remember me in your dua. Inshallah. Inshallah. And I'll say this so that you remember me in your du'as too. Uh, uh, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, I remembered you, the ones who joined this, not by name, apologies, in my du'as, and I ask you, especially tonight and tomorrow, to pray for me and for all the mu'mineen. Bear in mind, there is a hadith, tonight is Thursday night, there is a hadith that if you remember 10 of the faithfuls in your dua, and perhaps the hadith says of those deceased faithfuls, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make paradise incumbent upon you. So make sure you remember those deceased. Remember your relatives. It doesn't have to be, if you pray Salatul Layl, inshallah, you all do. It doesn't have to be remembering like Shaykh al-Mufid, Shaykh al-Tusi, Shaykh, all these, great scholars. No. Remember your relatives. The closer that person happens to be, the more worthy of you remembering them. And especially those that you have dispute towards, maybe you have problems with some of your relatives, make sure that you pray for them. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them, to give them awareness. Um, could you please add, Anonymous says, the English translations, inshallah. Um, I haven't had the chance. Can people actually see the Barzakhi realm while staying in their realm? For some, and only sometimes, that could happen, can take place. But that's the exception, right? We're not meant to be in that other life. We have to be in this life. And in fact, some ulama suggest that trying to have access to the other realm is not something that have been, at least there is a question here whether we have been given the permission to do. Like the Sufis, they want to have access to the other life. Have we been given this permission? I mean, how difficult was it for the Prophet and for the Imams to tell us, right? If there is a way to access, then the Ahlul Bayt, and if we were encouraged, obviously the Ahlul Bayt, they are the front runners in this case. They teach us what is beneficial for us. So if they haven't taught us, that means if they haven't taught us, sorry, that means that we're not meant to go through that road, as they say. Um, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. You're welcome. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. From the biblical reference, which are actually sins. Does Islam also have a similar viewpoint about them? So Anonymous asks about the 7 deadly sins in the biblical reference. According to the Quran, so there are the kaba'ir, the major sins. And that's one. And also there is, now I actually just remembered, there is a hadith that talks about, I don't have the program open, otherwise I would have searched it quickly. It's either the 10 sins or the 7 sins, according to one hadith that the Imam talks about, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He talks about, there's a specific number of sins. Okay, so Anonymous asks this interesting question. Do mental illness such as depression, anxiety, etc., stem from the soul, since it is not a physical illness? I wanted to keep this for the next session. Maybe I'll elaborate later on. So we said that the place of the soul, as mentioned in the hadiths, lies in the mind and in the brain, right? Ad-damagh. And so obviously, if there is a flaw, if there is a problem, an illness in the mind, that will affect the soul. Like as we have been saying, that it's imprisoned in the body. And so if there is a problem within this structure, obviously it affects the soul too. Like, for example, I cannot speak, right? Because of so and so. But then if the body is extracted from the body, if the soul is extracted, then I am capable of speaking, even though the body is dead, right? So because of this situation here, the combination, the mixture of the body and the soul, the soul is imprisoned. Now, sometimes the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam speak about the idea that if you want to improve and enhance your understanding, let's say eat such and such, right? Vinegar, for example. There's so many hadiths in this regard that vinegar, this improves your mental capacity and understanding. So how is this the case, right? Again, the body is connected to the soul in the life that we're living in. So you need from one side to improve the cognitive spiritual ability, so to speak, and also improve the corporeal aspect of yours too. So it's like um, uh, uh, doing some screw driving, so to speak, for the soul through this the mind and the brain. So it has a reciprocal effect. I don't know if I was able to convey what I wanted to. Uh, how about Anonymous says, how about evil eyes, black magic, jinn, um, psychological problems? Well, some of them they are linked to the body, and also obviously some of them are linked to the soul. We have a hadith about the evil eye, which you called them, that the eyes. Now the eyes here are a reference to the soul, that they can affect something outside the body too, sometimes. Like, for example, if you revere something, if you're fonded with something, that could affect, because of the affection and the admiration that someone has, the soul obviously is having this admiration. So that could impact that other party, that other side. This is why the hadith says that if you like something, remember God. Once you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it eliminates the negative impact of the soul. Beautiful, isn't it? A hadith says that sometimes a parent would impact their son negatively, even though they're not aware, because they're so much fond and in love of that child, that soul affects. And so the Imam says, make sure that you remember God. Once you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it erases the negative effects. Sometimes you would see yourself in the mirror and you like your physique. Again, the Imam says, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, and that negates and eliminates the negative effects of the soul. Yeah, there's a hadith that says that in al-ayna, the effect of the eye, or the effect of the soul through the eye, sometimes would put a healthy person into the grave. Say, oh, what a beautiful voice, what a beautiful eyes, what a beautiful what and what. That sometimes affects. So make sure you say Subhanallah. Make sure you say Allahu Akbar. Once you remember Allah, the case then goes well. So the hadith says, إن العين لتدخل الرجل القبر والجمل القدر. It would, that eye would sometimes put the healthy person in the grave, in a camel. Um, it would also kill, as in the effects that it has. Um, Sayyid, the last session was ended at mysticism and materialism, and you mentioned you could focus on that from the next session. I haven't forgotten about this, but now I'm just focusing on actually on materialism, that they're focusing on the body, and we have a soul that we have to acknowledge, because once we fail to realize that there is a soul, then we fail to realize many of the phenomena that we see in our lives that we simply um, cannot give an explanation to. And so my focus is still on the materialism, because brothers and sisters, I know we have a tendency to understand what mysticism is all about and whatnot, but I think what we need to understand um, and be aware of is the dangers of materialism in our lives, because this is something that we need to relate to. um, so the majority, they fall into this category because what they see, as we have been talking, is their bodies. So this is why they try to fulfill the desires and they forget all about the soul. Um, okay, so Hassan Rada says, "What is free will? Do we have any?" Well, this is one of those very obvious, yet unfortunately, because of the misconceptions, we tend to question, right? So let me ask you, and you answer me, do you have free will? Once you speak, this is in fact an answer that you do have free will. Otherwise, you weren't able to answer me. So the fact that I can do whatever I want to do, this is the biggest proof for having free will. Now, I know there are many, again, misconceptions that I don't want to mention right now. That if this is the case, then why is it that one, two, three, four? So just stick with the obvious, and with that you can eliminate uh, the uh, the vague things. Could you please explain the Abu Basir hadith? Anonymous says. Also a completely off-topic question, but do blind people see things the ways those with a sense of sight? Okay, so there is this statement by Pluto. It's a famous statement that من فقد حسا فقد علما. If you lose a sight, if you lose a sense, you will be losing a knowledge, right? That is attributed to that sense. So, for example, if you do not see, then you won't have the information that is gained and acquired through the eyes. If you do not hear, then you do not have the information and the knowledge that is acquired through the ears, and so on and so forth. But that's not the case, because knowledge is beyond the senses. Sometimes you do not see something, but you affirm to it. Like, for example, you know, let's say, of the existence of God. But if you come down a little bit, you know of certain things that you haven't seen. For example, you know that your parents love you. Why do you know that your parents love you? You just know that they love you. Now, obviously, there are signs for this, but love is something else. So you see their movements, you see them doing what and what, but then their love is not seeable, right? It's not something that you can sensualize, you cannot see. But you know that there is love, there is hatred, there is for example, and perhaps the Imam makes this example in the debate that he has with that Indian doctor. He says that if you see a rock flying in the air, right, you know that there's someone who threw it, even though you haven't seen the person behind the tree. But obviously, you know that you realize that this rock has to have a person who threw it. So you haven't seen this, but you know. Now, do blind people see things who the this who's or the way that those with the senses of sight do? Obviously, they don't see light, so they do not see light. But knowledge is beyond this. Uh, what is the quickest way to cure the soul and keep it cured? This world is against our souls, like it's like a prison. Okay, so the Quran says that if you want the cure, shifa'un lima fi sudur, come to me. Come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever He instructs, we need to act upon. Once you practice what they tell you, this will cure your soul. And so trying to make a distinction between the soul and the body is one of those wrong misconceptions that let me just focus on the soul. No, that's not the case. We have to practice praying time, have taqwa, observe piety. This helps the soul to be purified. Again, because of the combination and mixture that we have, this phenomenon that we call the human being. It's two sides. Okay, how do Dr. Shabnam says, how do monkey represent in the world of the soul? There is this other hadith that the Imam says that people are six types or maybe seven types. He says that there is the lion, there is um, um, the what and what. So he explains, for example, the kings, right? They have a special physique. The ones who are greedy, the ones and so on and so forth. Each one of them, obviously, um, it's that physique is a resemblance of their act. So sometimes, if someone is, I don't know, makes fun of truth. So the brother says about the monkeys, maybe making fun, taking truths lightly. I'm not quite sure. But then the idea is that people would change quite dramatically. Every sin has its physique to it or has its effects on the soul to them. Um, uh, Sister Markella says, Assalamu alaikum, are the lessons on YouTube? Some of them are, some of them aren't. Inshallah, I'll be putting them. Uh, um, I think we will stop here. MashaAllah, 51 questions. Uh, okay, so Hashim says, was Khal'a Badan recommended by the Noble Messenger? So Khal'a Badan is reference to extracting the soul. As far as I am aware of, no. And in fact, I've seen ulama say and suggest that this is a very dangerous path, that we are not quite sure that we are given the permission to go through trying to extract our souls. If it happens by God's order, that's another case. And this has happened to some people. That the same way that they sleep in their state of vigilance and being awake, their souls go out. But that's something else. Um, could okay? Anonymous says, please, would you touch point who can't focus on or concentrate? I've said this before. So this is something that needs exercise. The more you put effort in it, the more you can progress the same way that you exercise your body. Maybe start um, easily on yourself. Don't put too much pressure. Try to memorize one verse at a time, but then um, you can gain strength in this regard, inshallah. But then also there are some hadiths that suggest there are certain things that if you eat and consume, they help your memory, they help you in being able to focus. There are certain things that if you do, the Imam says, خِيفَ عَلَيْهِ السِّحْرُ. This has so much impact on the person that we have fear that that person can become a magician, right, because of their intelligence and smartness and whatnot. So that there are things that help in this regard. Ramadan, Saturday or Friday, I don't know. Uh, Ozma says, this is the last question. I've seen an old acquaintance in my dream. He passed away a few years ago. He looked very upset. I prayed for him, but what does this mean? Well, to stay on the safe side, maybe they try to convey a message. At the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen. And at least for a mu'min in the grave, the hadith says that ukfuna al barzakh. He says, the Imam says, as far as the barzakh or life after death in the grave is concerned, take care, the Imam says. You take care of this part, and we will take care of the hereafter. Maybe there is a sin that he needs your help in this regard. Give sadaqah as much as you can. Pray, say istighfar. There is a hadith that says two things, or perhaps these are two different hadiths, that these two things, they reach the deceased very, very quickly. So they reach him swiftly. One is giving charity. That that has an instant effect. Give sadaqah for this person. And two, reciting Surah Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. This has great deal of effect towards the deceased. So it's easy. Take one of those tasbihs and recite 100 times Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. And هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين. For those who said thank you, you're most welcome. Jazakumullah khair for everything. Sister Zahra has posted this, that Ayatollah Sistani's office, they say that لم تثبت رؤية الهلال غدا الجمعة, so that according to moon sighting, we haven't seen the crescent, and so tomorrow is the last day of Sha'ban and Saturday will be the first. على كل حال, greetings, تقبل الله أعمالكم, نسأل الله لنا ولكم حسن العاقبة. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.